If there were levels in Cthulhu movies, this one would undoubtedly be the most terrifying and mind-bending master. Its perfect blend of religious cultism and science fiction not only vividly manifests the fear of the unknown but also pushes every viewer's psychological limits with a relentless, bloody feast. With a piercing scream, a man bursts out the door in panic, while the woman following him is tragically shot and falls to the ground. The assailant shows no mercy, dousing her with gasoline and burning her alive. Unbeknownst to them, a mysterious man in a white robe watches silently from the forest. Soon after, patrolling officer Daniel finds the escaping man collapsed by the roadside. Seeing his bloodied and weakened state, Daniel reluctantly takes him to the nearby hospital. Coincidentally, his wife Allison works as a nurse at this hospital, but their relationship has been strained since the miscarriage of their child. Allison ignored her husband and rushed the unconscious man into the emergency room. To everyone's surprise, the man suddenly resists, forcing the doctors to sedate him. Through his identification, Allison learns his name is James and suspects he is likely a drug addict. However, the hospital's resources are limited, and to find out more, he would need to be transferred. Just recently, a fire at the hospital had forced the transfer of all equipment and personnel to the city. Now, only one male patient and a pregnant woman named Maggie remain in the hospital. While waiting for James to wake up, Daniel wanders around the hospital. He enters a room and is met with a horrifying sight. Beverly is inexplicably torturing and killing the male patient. Then, in a fit of madness, she tears off her own face. As she raises a pair of scissors, Daniel has no choice but to shoot her to stop the imminent threat. The gunshot attracts everyone else. After explaining what happened, Daniel rushes to the restroom. Killing someone for the first time leaves him trembling and violently nauseous. After regaining his composure, he is suddenly overwhelmed by dizziness, and a series of bizarre images flood his mind. But Richard and his wife soon woke him up. His wife tried to persuade him to rest, but he insisted on reporting the situation to his superiors first. Just then, the sheriff suddenly arrived at the hospital. He was investigating a massacre near the hospital and suspected James was the killer. Daniel informed the sheriff about what had just happened, then went back to his car to continue his report. But the radio suddenly lost signal. Just as he was puzzled, a man in a white robe appeared in front of his car. As he was about to approach, the surrounding lights went out abruptly. In the enveloping darkness, the white-robed man lunged at him. Caught off guard, Daniel was stabbed, barely escaping. He witnessed an even more horrifying scene. More and more white-robed figures were slowly approaching him. He hurried back to the hospital but passed out again due to blood loss. The eerie visions once again flooded his mind. After an emergency rescue, Daniel woke up. By now, the hospital was surrounded by countless white-robed figures. Oddly, they didn't seem to be planning to break in but stood silently, as if waiting for something. As everyone discussed how to respond, a scream echoed from a ward. Rushing to the source, they found James, propped against the bed, desperately calling for help. Behind him, a monstrous, deformed creature, the resurrected Beverly, was awakening. Seeing it closing in, Daniel quickly rushed in and kicked through the railing and rescued James. Still shaken, he grabbed a fire axe and urged everyone to leave quickly. At that moment, the two assailants who had been chasing James burst into the hospital. Under the threat of death, James held a surgical knife to Maggie's throat. As the situation spiraled out of control, Richard tried to reason with James but was fatally stabbed in the throat. In the chaos, Maggie's grandfather managed to knock James down, but the creature appeared behind the sheriff and abducted him. Daniel raised the axe and pursued, but the creature easily overpowered him. Fortunately, the two assailants followed and shot the creature in the head.
Stay back!
Decapitating the sheriff to be safe. Afterward, the three of them returned to the corridor, but the assailants still wanted to kill James. With unknown monsters inside and the hospital surrounded by the mysterious white-robed figures outside, Daniel persuaded them to temporarily set aside their grudge and focus on the immediate crisis. Successive scares leave Maggie with abdominal pain. To ensure safety, Daniel decided to risk returning to his patrol car for weapons. But just as he was walking out of the hospital with his father and son, Maggie went into difficult labor. Allison realized that without immediate surgery, both Maggie and the baby's lives were at risk. As a last resort, Allison had to go alone to get her surgical gear. It didn't take long before Daniel's trio managed to get their weapons back as well.
Come on, goddammit! Look out!
Upon learning that his wife had gone to the pharmacy alone, Daniel, worried, immediately took Vincent to check on her. However, halfway there, they discovered that Richard's body had mysteriously disappeared. Moreover, the pharmacy was in disarray with scattered medicines, but there was no sign of his wife. As he anxiously searched, the phone in Richard's office suddenly rang. Even weirder, it was the dead doctor's voice on the other end of the line. From the doctor, Daniel learned that Richard was behind everything, aiming to resurrect his deceased daughter. Richard had found a method for resurrection from an occult text, and the white-robed figures were his doing. Furious, Daniel demanded to know where Allison was, but the doctor hung up. To find answers, they sought out the only person who might know more, James. Under intense interrogation, James revealed everything he knew. Richard was the leader of a cult, and the white-robed figures outside were his followers. They lured people to a chapel, the site of the massacre, and he was one of their victims. The cult performed human sacrifices, and the bodies were stored in the hospital's basement. Hearing this, they immediately headed to the basement, taking James with them. With guidance from a trainee nurse, they reached the deepest level of the basement. However, what shocked everyone was that there was an extra layer of space that shouldn't have existed. In this space, the hall bore a strange triangular symbol, indicating it was a place of sacrifice. As they ventured further, Allison woke up on an operating table. Richard was nearby, cleaning his surgical knife and peeling skin from his body. He told Allison that he was responsible for the hospital fire, the nurse's deformities, and his own resurrection. Even Allison's miscarriage was a result of his sacrificial ritual. He revealed her belly was moving. She had been made a sacrifice too. Upstairs, Maggie was in agony, but the only remaining nurse was helpless. Maggie's grandfather tried to encourage her, but she suddenly killed him, revealing she was a follower of Richard. The room's lights went out as the white-robed figures entered the hospital, and Maggie, as if summoned, walked towards the basement. In the unknown space, Vincent and Simon found themselves in a hallucination. Back in their home, Vincent emotionally pushes Simon to the ground and questions him about why he didn't protect his mother and brother. It turns out that their families are being persecuted by cultists. The massacre mentioned by the sheriff was their revenge against the cult. Realizing Vincent was losing his mind, Simon used a flare to snap him out of it, breaking the hallucination. Meanwhile, Daniel reached the operating room door. Opening it, he saw his wife in labor, indicating he was in a hallucination too. Richard's voice brought him back to reality, where he found his wife lifeless, with monstrous tentacles emerging from her abdomen. Overcome with despair, Daniel lashed out with his axe, hacking at the grotesque sight. Turning around, he found himself in the morgue, with a strange triangular symbol on the wall. Richard's voice returned, claiming he had gained the favor of the ancient god through sacrifices.
I spent my life resisting death, but now I understand. I must embrace it. I'll have my beautiful daughter back. I just need one final thing.
Maggie then appeared and stabbed Daniel, before kneeling before the now fleshless Richard. She was chosen as the vessel for Richard's daughter's resurrection. With everything ready, Richard chanted a spell to open a void gate behind him. As his daughter's soul entered Maggie's body, she suddenly regained consciousness and tried to escape, but it was too late. Richard's daughter emerged from Maggie's body. Now a twisted creature, Daniel saw her true form, a beast with a grotesquely distorted body beneath a deceptively beautiful face. As she approached Daniel, Vincent and Simon arrived just in time, but their bullets had no effect, and the creature grabbed Vincent. Realizing the hopelessness, Vincent covered himself in gasoline and looked at his son. Simon, fighting back tears, ignited the flare, engulfing his father and the creature in flames. Meanwhile, Richard's ritual continued, aiming to achieve immortality by fully opening the void gate. In a desperate move, Daniel struck Richard with his axe, interrupting the ritual. In a desperate attempt to end this nightmare, Daniel jumps into the void gate with Richard in his arms. As the gate closed, the space began to collapse violently. Simon managed to escape just in time. In the story's conclusion, Daniel and his wife miraculously survived in a strange otherworldly landscape. Above them, a massive black pyramid loomed like a ladder to the sky. But for the couple, now uncertain of their fate, nothing else mattered anymore.